So, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Future of Golf podcast. This is episode 25, where I speak to people who are innovating in the golf industry every week. In this episode, I have a person that I met in the PGA show when I went across this year. We have Bart Jansen, who is part of the team at Teecontrol, who, in your opinion, Bart, could be building one of the most modern golf tee sheets in existence. Really looking forward to diving in, Bart, to find a little bit more about your journey and the mission that you guys are on in Teecontrol. But first of all, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Graham. Good to be here.
Love it, love it. Bart, maybe if you want to take us back just to begin this in terms of what your first experience was like with the game of golf, maybe before you actually made it a career. How did you actually get into the sport?
Yeah, that's a bit of a long story, but I'll try to keep it. I'll try to keep it brief.
Yeah.
At some point, I've been invited just for a clinic to play some golf at the Haarlemmermeerse here in the Netherlands, and the sport just grabbed me. I love it. I like it. I still like it. I still love it. And with playing more and more, becoming a business club member at Priesdo here in the Netherlands, made it a part of my kind of business behavior to be on the golf course, meet people, etc., etc. So golf has been really good for me in from a business point of perspective, and as a kind of a parallel story, I do have a software company, and in that software company, we built a piece of software for the home building industry.
Okay.
We were very orientated on more project-based projects, and we at some point we decided to become a more license-based company. And then we started with one of the company, which is a company that's called Home DNA, a huge workflow for the home building industry that we licensed out to home building companies. And the good part of that is that we build a huge platform which has been adapted by let's say 50-60% of all the home building companies in the Netherlands.
Wow.
And at some point, about 3 years ago, a Amsterdam investment company reached out to us, and within a half year, the company had been sold to this investment company. And there, the story crosses with the golf part. I had a little bit spare money left, and my hobby playing golf, and also having a history in working for golf courses, trying to develop different parts, different software products or projects for golf courses. We always ran into the issue problems with T-sheet system, golf management systems, etc., with inconsistent data, not open, not cloud-based, etc., etc., etc. So with the experience of having a SaaS product, being able to sell that, having a bit of spare money, and let's say a bit of frustration about what's happening in the golf industry, everything came together, and I said at some point, if I want to do something special, extra in my life, then it is something to really disrupt everything which is going on in the golf management or T-sheet business. Nice. And that's how we started up Teecontrol. And we're 2 years ahead now, and it's a really exciting story.
Fantastic. It was kind of seems like the perfect storm for you. So you had the experience of software products. Financially, you were in a good place, and then also you had a golf membership, so you're passionate about that project as well. So that seems perfect.
Yeah,
it's funny actually. So since I've actually moved to Lisbon recently, as I mentioned to you, and while I've been over here, I've met a lot of Dutch folks. So I ran into a guy from Utrecht, just outside Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And he runs a mobile app agency. So he works with a lot of Dutch companies. He actually works with a Dutch power company. And his co-founder came across just the other day, and he says that he spends between 20 to 30% of his time going out and playing golf and meeting new clients.
Yeah.
So that I was jealous of him. First of all, I would love personally for more of my job to be on the golf course. But is that quite a normal thing in the Netherlands for business to be done on the golf course?
Yeah, I always see it as a kind of a not natural thing. It's not that I go to the golf course to do business. It is, yeah, like back in the days, like I probably more than 20 years ago, I met another um, CEO of another company, and at some point he told me, and I was just in the beginning of playing golf, and he said, "Oh, I'm always going to the golf course, and I can drive my business just by playing golf, etc., etc." And I was like, "Yeah, he's crazy. That's never gonna happen." And now, 20 years later, I can bring like at least 80, 90% of all my connections in the business world back to playing golf. And that is also because if you just go play with your friends, it's probably a little bit different. But being part of a business club, being invited by little tournaments, etc., and in the end, I've had the luck to be at Prisdo Golf, where we met somebody who was related to Blue Green in France. So that's how we moved to do projects to do for Blue Green. Then we got in Sweden, we got with the MCO Golf Star involved. And altogether, yeah, it builds up, builds up, builds up. And so it's beside the general business, I've also had, let's say, the luck to get involved in golf related companies and golf related persons, and that gave a lot of direction in the end to what Teecontrol now in the end has come about.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you're being humble there, Bart. I think you're a hardworking man, so I'm sure the luck has came to you through hard work and perseverance. But yeah, I'm really intrigued actually because you mentioned there before that you've obviously had experience with interacting with people in the golf industry, and then your curiosity for technology led you to kind of analyze the systems that were present in the golf clubs. And you mentioned there maybe a few problems that existed in the tee sheet world. So do you want to maybe talk about like the current tee sheet landscape and kind of where your solution is aiming to help golf clubs in that sense?
Yeah. Okay. Well, what we see a lot in the tee business is that many of the products available are either nationally based or international products. All the national based products are strongly related in, let's say, 9 out of 10 to the federation in that specific country.
Okay.
And even in some of the countries, those T-sheet systems are either directed or financed directly by the federation. And what we also see there is that most of those systems are like 15, 20 years ago, going back in development. And yeah, one of the downsides of that period where software has been developed is that a lot of those systems have become kind of legacy systems with older software, older structures, etc., etc. And I even can't really blame those companies who did that because it's something which was a kind of naturally caused by the time those pieces of software have been developed. Um, and then on the other side, we have like more international systems. And those systems are mainly based US systems. There are some European systems, but a lot of them are US based systems. And if you compare golf in US to golf in Europe, you see that golf in the US is what we say in general a lot easier than it is in Europe. Um, in US, a lot of people play 18 holes, being charged on a credit card, and having a beer and a burger on the course. And that is generalizing. And what we see here in the Netherlands, that we have like multiple clubs on one course, an enormous variety of memberships, an enormous variety of green fee rates, etc., etc. So on one side, if we look at the national T-sheet providers, you see that they're generally older systems which were built in a time where golf was done in another way. You had one membership. Everybody was member of the club. The club manager knew exactly who were who. But nowadays, with all the variety, etc., those older systems don't really match to what the needs are today. And if you look at the more general system, international systems, that a lot of those are not really, let's say, focused on what we have and do in Europe. So there is a kind of a gap.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And that is exactly the gap that we tried to change.
So yeah, so you mentioned the difference between the US and the European side. Do you want to talk a little bit about that in terms of like I guess the cultural difference and what has led to like the difference in the systems used? Because I guess people in the software world, they'll see the same 4 or 5 names that are used in country clubs across there. Why do you think there is like most of the big players would be in the US?
Well, the US market is huge. Just to compare, we have like in the Netherlands, we have 250, 270 golf courses with 16,000 in the US alone, not included Canada. That's not to compare. So if you just look at the volume of the market, it is quite clear and easy to explain why there are a lot of players, and those players are a lot larger, bigger than here in the Netherlands or in Europe in general. And what I mentioned before is that a lot of those more local systems are in many cases related to the federation in that country. And we do have a lot of language differences across Europe. So a lot of those systems are also built on that language or those habits in those countries. And that's exactly what we wanted to wipe away and build a fully international system, which is built with the most modern technique, the most modern architecture available, as a fully international system, which can work either for a private course or a pay-and-play course. And with the enormous amount of settings and possibilities that we can have adapted to that course with that in that country, which has that specific needs. And I think that is one of the things that makes Teecontrol very special compared to, let's say, I would almost say 98% of the main majority of what's available in the golf market in the T-sheet / golf management systems. And that is and it seems to be that we're let's say we're finding out at the moment that with the courses coming to us that we somehow we touch something.
I'm interested as well because so we met at the PGA show, Bart, and obviously you'd made a good bit of progress to that point, but it seems like since the PGA show you've made a lot of progress.
Yeah, we did.
So do you want to maybe go back? So obviously you had the curiosity for solving the problem. Do you want to talk about the first club that you interacted with about your idea and kind of how that whole experience was of speaking to your first club and yeah, their experience with your platform.
Yeah, I think we have two main first clubs that we used kind of a pilot, and I have to name them anyway because I really appreciate the fact that they have been helping us and have been really open minded um, to do something and little be the kind of the pioneers of all the things we invented and thought about, which is Priesdo in the Netherlands and Blue Bay on Curacao in the Dutch Caribbeans. Those two have been the first to use Teecontrol, and they have both of these have been really helpful in getting this project better and better, and getting it to a level where we can say now that we have a fully operational product, which has like an enormous amount of functionalities and functions. Um, and that is one of the big advantages that we have, is that the development pace that we have is so huge that each month we deliver from a sprint we deliver a new release, and it is like, yeah, it's almost crazy what's happening in a month. And if I compare that to a lot of other products in the market, is that the development is relatively slow. Um, and that is, and we have had to go back to those two clubs. Yeah, you always go to a process where you have the idea, you present your first layouts, then the first working model, etc., etc., and then at some point it's going live, and then you have to work, and that's something that we have to realize, that it is a product for a golf course, which is like business critical. If that TC doesn't work, there's not happening nothing. So altogether, it has been an exciting journey. We have had the help of some great golf courses. And yeah, in the meantime, I can say we're a full grown T-sheet system with a huge amount of function and functionalities. Even I can even say with a lot of function and functionalities that no other system has in the world right now.
That's fantastic. And I'm always curious, Bart, as well, because often golf clubs that I've spoken to in the past, they basically want a system that is all encompassing. So what I mean by that is like integrated with everything. It's just like one seamless system that combines like point of sale, T sheet, pretty much everything in one. And at least what I found when we went across to America in January was that the big players in each industry, they were very open to collaborating with other brands in order to provide that really seamless experience. So I know me and yourself have been in talks and how things could happen, but have you thought about that in terms of how you would provide that like seamless experience, or I guess openness to integrating with
Yeah.
other golf software companies?
I'm totally convinced that this market of software has changed so much in the past, let's say 5 to 10 years. It was like 10 years ago, a connection to on another software and integration was like an exciting adventure. Nowadays we do like two in a week. So yeah, what I told about the home building software that we have before, we have like 47 integrations with other software parties, and that history that also formed my idea here. The funny thing is that the workflow, the huge workflow, and it goes too far in detail to explain that all, but the huge workflow of home DNA, we came at some point, and then some of the home builder companies asked us, can you also make a planning tool then integrating with that specific product? And there is a really good planning system available in the home building industry software. So at some point we said, yeah, why are we going to try to rebuild that and not try to partner with this ideally perfectly working planning system? And when this whole project started with the golf industry. The strategy has there been based on what happened with the home building industry. It was said, why can't we be the very very best planning system for golf in the world? There are so many other companies and other pieces of software which are so specialized and focused in their area. Take tournament software, take POS systems, take accounting systems. And if you also see in those areas or markets that there are also very good specialists, which are also based on modern structure with APIs available, etc., etc., and then make a specific fit for that specific market or that specific country of that specific golf course. So that's literally what we do. So we have a very what's called a best of breed strategy, that we literally combine the best pieces of software either for that area, either for that specific type of golf course, and that makes it much more flexible than a huge all-in-one system, where there's much less focus on each of the specific elements, while we can just focus on everything around the planning and organizing of the golf course. And I can tell you, we are with a team of 8 people now, and we have our hands full on that. So, and being just able to say, hey, if you're talking about tournament systems, we're now integrating with two other tournament systems. One of them is Golf Genius. And use a huge party as Golf Genius. Golf Genius has like 80 developers only working on tournament software. 80. That's 10 times more than we have at the moment.
So yeah, you're mentioning there that it almost seems like a requirement to integrate as opposed to something special. And like I've definitely seen that, and that's certainly one of our goals for this year is to collaborate with a lot more companies, specifically in the tee sheet space, because that's where the most synergy is for us for sure. I'm curious, Bart. Obviously, you've probably got to travel to some cool places doing this journey. Obviously, we're in Florida together. Do you get the opportunity to go out on the golf course and actually play the sport much during this, or is it all just hands on deck?
No. No. Yeah, it is. There is happening a lot, but in the end, it's still, and that's one of the benefits of being in this industry. To be, let me put on the light again.
Yeah, sure thing.
If I sit too still, the lights goes off.
Yeah, just a wave every 5 minutes during the podcast.
and there's not too much sun outside, so we have to do it with artificial light. But coming back, that I think that is one of the extra specials of being in this industry, is to be able on beautiful courses, meeting people that give you access to courses you probably otherwise never play. So that's the nice combination of having a nice job and having a hobby, and being able to combine that together. So that makes it extra special.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something I don't take for granted either. I try not to abuse my reach with that, but once every so often, it's really fun to get.
Yeah, I always make sure. I always make sure that I have my golf set back in my car if I'm driving somewhere. And if somebody then says, "Hey, don't you want to play?" Then I say, "Oh, well, okay, now I'm here."
Yeah, I'm guilty for that as well. I've definitely done that a few times. And Bart, I'm curious. This is the first time I've spoken to you in a little while, so maybe if we go ahead to maybe a year in advance from now, and you're kind of looking ahead to the future, is there any kind of like intermediate goals that you're setting for yourself? Obviously, your vision there is to be the best tee sheet provider in the world and provide modern infrastructure.
Yeah.
Is there any particular regions that you're planning to expand into, or is it just continued growth?
Yeah, of course, continued growth, but you have to deal with a company which is new in a competitive market. It's not that we are the first tee sheet and we bring something new in the sense of it is organizing a golf course has been done 100 times before. So what we have to do is to be extra special in specific areas, like specific functions, specific functionalities that really can help the golf manager or the player to have an extra good experience. That is one, and that is like something that you have to have before you can enter or conquer any part of the market. Next to that, if you talk about midterm goals, we started with like the first 2, 3, 4, 5 golf courses. Then you go to a process where you can really start to prove your case in like growing to a kind of 25 courses, and also showing that you are able to work not only in the Netherlands but also in other areas. So that is literally the growth path that we have, is to in chunks grow in specific areas. I have to be fair. One of our main goals is the US. Uh, because of the size of the company, the size of the market there, but also because I love the country. I love to be there, and I think there is a lot to win. And what I mentioned before, um, what I see in the US is that I think there are some areas to improve and help golf courses to earn and organize their organization in a different way, and that is something that can be helped by software and a little bit of consultancy about the software. So I think that within a year we will be in other areas around the world. I think the Caribbean is one of the areas that we're making a huge progress at the moment. There are some specific countries here in Europe, and that's a little bit those are the first steps then to make and try to make a move to the US.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, it'll be interesting by the time I see you again over in the PGA show to see how your progress is coming on. But it sounds incredibly promising. Just for anyone that's listening to this that maybe wants to learn a bit more about you or a bit more about Teecontrol, is there anywhere online that is best for them to check out?
Happily, we do have a website. No, you www.teecontrol.com is the website. It is in a Dutch and an English version. If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call or an email.
Awesome. Well, Bart, that was a fantastic episode, and yeah, really interesting insights from your transition from like pure software engineering to then taking that passion to the golf industry. So thank you so much for your time, and yeah, it was a pleasure having you on the latest episode of the podcast. So thank you so much.
Thanks very much for having me.